before it ever is taken away from the curb. And that's the way it should be.
That's the way it should be. But unfortunately, it isn't a lot of the time.
Okay. Now, tell us here about your experience. You were a steel worker at Cascade Steel. How long?
25 years to the day. I retired the exact day and month that I hired on.
Oh.
I hired September 17th of 1979. I retired 25 years later at the same date.
That's beautiful.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I when I do my nighttime prayers, Frank, I thank God for my union negotiated pension plan, because that wouldn't have been possible to get out of there at 25 and out without that and a wife that's willing to work and help support me.
Yes, yes. Well, that's beautiful, and that's the way it should be for all of our citizens,
Yes.
to have a chance to work and to save some money and to plan for the future and have a future.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I think the same thing in terms of how important public education is. People have to have an opportunity to grow and develop their capacities so that they can work in a profitable way for the society, for themselves and for the society.
Well, and again, back to public education, Cascade Steel and other, what's left of the industrial base in Oregon, send a lot of their apprentices to the community colleges for education. So it is vital for companies to support the idea of taxes for the idea of education, because that's where they get their educated workforce from. There's a few organizations that privately do their apprenticeship training, the building trades, the carpenters, but most industrial companies and unions do theirs in a public facility.
Well, now tell me about the World Trade Organization.
Well,
What's going on with that?
Well, we mentioned that earlier, and it's
Yes.
the 10th anniversary. On December 5th, there's going to be a big rally in remembrance of what they call the Battle for Seattle. We steel workers were there on November 30th of 1999 for 5 days, and we participated in demonstrations against the WTO because of what it would do to the environmental quality and to the industrial base of our country. And to our chagrin, we were correct. A lot of the footage that people saw of those events, they saw violent acts and vandalism. I'm here to tell you that I really never saw any of that. And, it was quite an experience to uphold. And the WTO is not as viable of an organization as it was once 10 years ago, but it's still around. Hopefully we can get back to where we have reasonable tariffs and environmental laws, internationally. We were talking earlier about the Willamette Week article, Beaten to the Pulp, when I was explaining to you that we're shipping scrap paper 6,000 miles away to China, cheaper than we can get scrap paper from Medford, Oregon to our plants up in the north end of Oregon.
How could that be?
That's a good question, and that's called international trade. But the environmentalists are always on us about the quality of the water in the river, but what about the carbon footprint of the tankers going back and forth, or I should say container ships going back and forth? What's wrong with having pulp and paper produced in this country rather than in a country that has no environmental standards? I mean, are the Chinese people going to put tax money in the coffers for the state of Oregon or the United States government? I don't think so.
Yeah, see, that's one of the odd things here. In terms of the World Trade Organization, it was to eliminate tariffs between these countries, but that's irrespective of what the conditions were for those countries. How can we compete against China in terms of low standards of living, although they're improving, and I'm glad to see it, you see, but not as that having the effect of undercutting the working standards for us in the US of A.
Exactly. It was a bait and switch. We were told that, we'll import their cheap products and they'll buy our cars. Oh, no. No, the cars are now being built in China. And I hate to beat up on our current governor, but he wants to import Chinese cars to be built in Oregon. I beg to differ. That the argument should be, we'll build cars in Oregon and maybe ship them somewhere else, rather than, here we go again with the carbon footprint coming into the United States to assemble a product made overseas. When we have abilities, we've done great things in this country, and American workers are very productive, and we can do these things.
Yeah, so the issue here is keep jobs in the US of A for our own citizens. That doesn't eliminate learning and trading with others, but we also at the same time have to care for the education, the health, and the well-being of our people right here.
Which brings us back to the common good. And you know, I think a lot of people are not long-time thinkers. They have to be thinking about, what are my children going to do for jobs? What are my grandchildren going to do for jobs? The last I recall, 25% of this nation is college educated. And in that 25% of our population, the people that go to college, the vast majority of them never find a job within their own major. So we spend all this time and effort to educate 1/4 of our population to do jobs that
They're not there.
they're not educated in.
Yeah.
There is nothing wrong with working for a living in an industrial setting. I mean, it provided an income for me and my wife, education, college education for everybody but my 17-year-old and my dog. And, you know, I don't know about my dog, but I'm sure my 17-year-old's going to get his college degree in time. So, I mean, there's respectability in it. I can go back to Eugene V. Debs, who ran for president 4 times, who was a socialist, who said in his day in Terre Haute, Indiana, the doctor and the common worker would tip their hat as they pass each other in the street.
And they should.
And they should. And I think that has kind of gone by the by, and it's got to come back.
You know, we need to respect each other and help each other, first in our own society and then around the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's really what this is about, isn't it?
Absolutely, that's what it's about. You help yourself at home, and then you bring it out to the rest of the world, the people in the world.
You know, we have just one more minute here. What are some of your closing thoughts for this debate and this discussion in terms of where we should be going, where should we be heading right now as citizens in the US of A?
Well, I think you need to look in the mirror. You need to examine your conscience. You need to say to yourself, how does this affect other people? There are 57 million people in this country without health care. Anyone that owns a home who loses their ability to have health care has the bad opportunity of losing their home, and it's happening to a lot. You could be there, and you have to think about those that are already at the gates or are already gone through the gates. This is very bad. We should care more about the people that we live with in this country and around the world.
Help to provide jobs for our own citizens,
Yes.
as well as for citizens around the world.
Yes.
Help to provide health care for our own citizens, as well as for people around the world.
Yes.
Health care and education are what are basic there for us as citizens of the US of A and citizens of the world.
Yes.
Been great to have you on Speaking Frankly.
It's been great to be here, Frank. Thank you.
More power to us.
Definitely.
Okay.